2, 1. Hey guys, welcome back. Today is Valentine's Day, and that means it's a day of love, it's a day of yearning, it's a day of being with the people that you care about most in this world. And if you run a YouTube channel focusing on horror films, it means that we're talking about My Bloody Valentine. So it turns out watching the original version of this for this video is the first time that I have seen that version. I grew up watching the 3D remake, and by grew up watching, I mean I watched it a couple of times, and like, as I've mentioned in previous videos, huge Dean Winchester fan, so no problems here when it comes to that. But not very good is what I would say. And I think watching this one later, I think what got lost for me in watching in the 2009 remake is that the original, to me, comes across as though it's supposed to be a satire. And I believe that, like, that is my theory. I believe wholeheartedly that is supposed to be a satire of a classic holiday horror film of the time. It's just too ridiculous. Like, the concept is too ridiculous. There's no reason why this deranged maniac in the mines would give a fuck about a Valentine's Day dance, because that's not what killed it. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but you'll be here with me in a moment. But that original one was obviously supposed to be satire in my brain. It's so Canadian. Like, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? It's so Canadian. But the 2009 remake was very much like trying to make it straight and make him like scary. And like, sure, the miner is like it's not a bad, it's not a bad horror character design. It is spooky. And the concept of having a horror film in a mine, it's crazy to me that it hasn't been done more. Other than The Descent, which isn't even set in a mine, it's set in a cabin. Like, I'm surprised how underutilized that location is. But then at the same time, with a bit of BTS information that we have here from the director, I also can kind of see that it will be a nightmare to film underground. So these are all my thoughts, basically. My beginning thoughts going into My Bloody Valentine. I'm pretty sure the original film came out in like 1981. It's a Canadian horror film. It was like basically made to jump on the holiday trend at the time that had been started by like Halloween and Black Christmas, and like the fact that you could really monetize these holiday periods of time. And so this was just the next one. And honestly, there's not that many Valentine's Day horror films out there. I know there's a new one coming out this year, but other than that, there's not a huge amount, which is the reason why if you log on to YouTube and you'll subscribe to horror channels, you will see so many My Bloody Valentine videos at this time of the year. And I'm just gonna be another one of those basic bitches. So let's jump into it. My friend Tully got me a little Valentine's Day chocolate present, so I put them next to me to snack on. Although my goal is for this to not be as long of a video as my other ones are, because like, in it being a satire, My Bloody Valentine is not particularly plot heavy. I wouldn't say that there's a lot for us to dive into. There's also not a huge amount of like behind the scenes information that I can find. So hopefully you will see at the bottom of this time code like a max of 45 minutes. No issue is every time I eat one of those, it's like red licorice on the inside. So like really masticating to get through it. This is a bad mid-video snack. Okay, so as I mentioned, My Bloody Valentine is a 1981 Canadian slasher film directed by George Mihalka. I believe I've pronounced that correctly. And the screenplay is by John Baird. I believe I have also said that correctly. The film was conceived, produced, written, filmed, everything in a year. Yet again, as I said, it was very much a reaction to a trend and a hype and a moment that was happening in the zeitgeist. And it was shot on location in Sydney Mines. I live in Sydney, not my Sydney, Canada, Sydney. In Sydney Mines, Nova Scotia in the fall of 1980. And originally it was apparently entitled The Secret. However, the producers decided to change it to My Bloody Valentine because then it would fit more into that holiday horror film feel. So despite a lot of critics like not really getting the film, it generally got mixed reviews when it first came out, but it did do like $5.7 million at the box office. It's definitely, I think, gathered like quite a large cult following. The original one, not the remake, has gathered quite a large cult following over the years. And like, I honestly thought it was going to be worse than it was. Having watched it now at like the age of 27, watching it, I genuinely thought that it was going to be really bad from what I had seen online. But this is a fun movie. It's silly. I think if you take it too seriously, then you're going to be disappointed. Like, we're not going for highbrow here, but it's satire. It is satire. It has to be. Like, now let's jump into the plot. First things first, as I mentioned, Mines are so scary. I also have a little bit of claustrophobia. Like, that's something that is a me thing. But like, I am very surprised that more films have not been made that are based in a mine or like a horrific incident in a mine. Like, we've done 1,000,001 films based in like a deep underwater cavern. Why can't we do mines? That's, I presume production costs is what I would say. But like, it's just such a good layout and setting for a horror film. So we come into it with a cold open here. We've got two miners. We're hard launched into the mine. We've got two miners who are walking along in their full mining getup. This is the getup that the killer is going to have throughout the film. So we've got two of them walking through. They reach this little like enclave area. And one of them, to my surprise, not having seen this movie, takes off their jumpsuit and are in like a bra and are like looking very sexy and have a little love heart tattoo here. And like, she then takes off her mask and like, she's like ready to get down, you know, like, let's get steamy in these mines. And she goes up to the other miner and she's like, hey, why don't you take your mask off? Like, she doesn't say it, but she's all like, hey, take your mask off. And he's like, no, but he says it silently. And she starts like weirdly like fondling his mining mask, which is why I'm like, guys, it's satire. Like, there is nothing, like, she's literally like, you know, going at it on over the top of his clothing and his mining mask. And he starts to get like all like, oh, what the fuck? And then he at some point has like smashed his pickaxe, which is the weapon of choice, the pickaxe into the side of the wall. And she was like, ha ha ha, so sexy. So fun. All of this is no good. But remember, we're in the 80s in a horror film. So I'm not going to pretend like the women look amazing in this film. But he smashes, she's like, ha ha ha. And then what you would expect to happen happens. He sees the little love heart on her chest, starts freaking the fuck out, and then like pushes her onto the pickaxe so that she's stabbed directly through the love heart. Now, obviously this leads to multiple questions. If there's a lot of assumptions that have to be made for us to give any grace to this woman being down here right now. If she's ready to get down and diggy with it, we must assume that she has seen this man outside of his mining suit. So that would insinuate that for the first time, because we see throughout the rest of the film, he is not like, when he's killing people, nobody knows who he is. This is insinuating that he lured this woman down into the mines in his not mining outfit, got down there, convinced her to put on a mining outfit. Then they got down there because having sex down in the mines was better than having sex in your bed. And she knew who he was, but still was like, oh, he's kind of into keeping the mining stuff on. Like, the way that if there are no alarm bells going off, then I guess the 80s were a different time. It's confusing. We have to assume that she knew who he was under the mask. So obviously she wasn't going to expect him to kill her. But it's just not in the behavior that the killer has had up until this, that we see from this proceeding onwards. Because what if it hadn't gone the way that he wanted it to go? Anyway, that's the cold open, then we get a title card. So here's what I was talking about with the production information about filming down in the mines. Mahalka has said since making the movie that the most difficult element of My Bloody Valentine was filming in the mines. Located 820 meters underground, 2,700 feet for Americans, filming in the mine was a lengthy process as due to limited space in the elevators, it would take an hour to transport the cast and crew to the location. Also, due to the methane levels underground, lighting had to be carefully planned as the number of bulbs that could be safely utilized was limited. Prior to the production's arrival to the mine, the owners cleaned up the location significantly, leaving it described as a clean and colorful Disney-like set. This resulted in the production team spending an estimated $30,000 to paint portions of the mine to achieve a darker atmosphere, akin to how it had appeared in its original state. The producer, Dunning, referred to the shoot as horrendous. I wonder if it would be more expensive to shoot in an actual mine or if it's more expensive to shoot on a soundstage. I don't know. Anyway, food for thought. I guess that's the reason why there's not that many mining horror films. But I still think there should be more because it's difficult to film in lots of different places and we still fucking do it. Okay. And I think that a mining horror film is just so, like, we are overdue for another one. So then we get kind of hard launched into our main group of kids. I'm not going to go as deep into the character because honestly, there's not that much deepness to these characters. I'm not going to go as deep into the characters as I usually do in these kind of breakdowns, but we get introduced to the male side of our main group of friends. We're in a small mining town in the middle of winter, like it's all in the middle of nowhere, very small town. And all of these guys in their, like, let's say early 20s, all of these guys work in the mines, and all of them are dating girls, which make up the other half of this friend group, which is our core group for the film. So we follow the guys, they're down in the mines, they come up, they're like, oh my God, let's go see our guals, let's go see them, because they're setting up for the Valentine's Day dance. Interesting. Wonder why that's a problem. What's going to happen with the Valentine's Day dance? This is called My Bloody Valentines. Surely it's going to be relevant. Yes, it is. You're a very smart viewer. So the Valentine's Day dance has been organized by the mayor, who was like the only actor that I recognized in this film, actually. I think he's been in a bunch of stuff. I can't quite place specifically what though. So Mayor Hannigan and the police chief, whose name is Jake Newby. Those are the two people who have organized it. They also kind of constantly being like, you know, it's going to be so great that we can finally have a Valentine's Day dance after 20 years. Let's not even talk about what happened 20 years ago. Let's keep that in the dark. So they're alluding to us that something bad happened 20 years ago. So in my mind, first watching this, if I hadn't seen the remake, I would be like, oh, that girl got killed 20 years ago on Valentine's Day. And so they haven't celebrated a Valentine's Day dance up until now. That's what you would assume. That would be incorrect. We then get introduced to one of our main trio. So there's like three main characters. One of our main trio, TJ, who's the mayor's son. And we find out that he's just come back to town and is being forced by his dad to work in the mines because he left town to go like make it big in the big city, but he like fully failed. So before the mayor and the chief leave, they're like going off to do something, to do police official business admin shit. Before they leave, one of the kids runs up to them and is like, oh, somebody dropped off this candy heart box for you, which is like one of those Valentine's Day boxes that's filled with chocolate. Standard, very usual Valentine's Day stuff. Mayor's like, oh, thanks so much, kid, cute. Anyway, they get in the car, they start driving. As they're driving, the mayor opens it. When he opens it, inside, he finds a heart. Like an actual literal heart. And he's like, oh my God, it's happening again. Like there is not even a brief instant that it is not happening again. Whatever the fuck happened 20 years ago, as soon as they started organizing another Valentine's Day dance, it instantly was happening again. There was no break at all. And the chief is instantly like, oh my God, he's back. They freak out, car turns around. They're obviously going off to go and figure this shit out. We cut to a bar, which seems to be like the main bar where all the kids hang out after work. And we have our harbinger, I've never been able to say that word, harbinger of the film, which is the bartender, who's like, now you kids, I'm telling you, don't organize this fucking Valentine's Day dance. It's no bueno. And he launches into our story from 20 years ago. So essentially 20 years ago on Valentine's Day, there were 5 miners who were still down below and 2 supervisors who were making sure that everything was going well. Because of the Valentine's Day dance, the 2 supervisors decided to clock off early to go bone their girlfriends, I guess. And they didn't check the methane levels before they left, and there was an explosion that happened down in the mines, trapping the 5 miners there for 6 weeks. So by the time everybody was able to reach them 6 weeks later, there was only one of them who had survived, which was Harry Warden, and he had survived by eating the other miners. The bartender who's telling this story supposedly is the person who found him, and Harry Warden had gone like full fucking loco crazy, as you would being trapped for 6 weeks in like dark mine, I would assume. So after he was rescued because he had gone full loco, he was sent to a nearby asylum for people with not good brains. But a year later, he escaped, came back to the town of Valentine's Bluff, returned to the town and took revenge on the 2 supervisors by killing them, cutting out their hearts, putting them in candy heart boxes like the one that the mayor had, and leaving them at the Valentine's Day dance with a note saying, never hold another Valentine's Day dance again, otherwise I will come back to the town and I'll kill all y'all motherfuckers, right? This is what I mean by satire. Why would he care about that? Because his problem is not Valentine's Day. His problem is the mining industry, right? But that's not where we're at. And also this is a holiday horror film, which I understand. But this is why I'm like, you cannot take this shit seriously. It's satire. So he came back, and when he killed them, he was using the pickaxe, he had the mining suit, and he had the gas mask. This is the outfit that we saw in the first scene, right? Yes, so this is what happened 20 years ago. This is the reason why there hasn't been a dance for 20 years. All of this starting to come together. So the group of kids who are like listening to Old Mate Bartender, A, they've probably heard this story a million times from the way that they're acting, but B, they don't give a shit. They're like, you're an idiot. That was 20 years ago. He's obviously not going to come back. He's been in that fucking asylum for 50 million years, 20 years to be exact, but you know what I mean. And the bartender is fucking mad about this, but they don't give a shit, because like when you're a kid, you don't. And by kid, I say like, I guess in your early 20s. They honestly all look like they could be in their 30s. So by kids, maybe I'm talking about people my age, in which case, if somebody told me that story, I don't know how seriously I would take it if it happened 20 years earlier. And I didn't know that the mayor had just received a heart in a box, you know? So Valentine's Day dance wouldn't seem like a lethal choice. We also, at this point in this bar scene, start to see the main love triangle of the film, which is going to be our driving B plot, basically. We've got Minor killing everyone, and then we've got love triangle. And this is the main trio that I was talking about earlier. So the main trio, it consists of TJ, the mayor's son, another guy in the town called Axel, and Sarah. So before TJ left town, TJ and Sarah were in a couple, they were in love, blah, blah, blah. But when he left, he didn't write to her, he didn't tell her where he was going. She basically was like, I had no idea when you were coming back, so you ceased to exist for me, which is completely valid and fair. And so she has now started dating Axel. But obviously all of these people were friends at some point. But Axel is obviously feeling insecure about the fact that TJ is back, because it's kind of obvious to everyone that Sarah loves TJ. Like, that's kind of what it is, but she's also like, fuck you, you know? So it's a bit of a iffy situation, but TJ is being a dick and is actively pursuing Sarah, even though she is now with Axel, and he was the person who fucked up, you know, as men do. So the sheriff calls the asylum that Harry Warden is supposedly being housed in, but they have absolutely zero records of him, which is, I have words about this, but there'll be another scene later that I will dive deeper into those words for. But we cut to ominous, heavy breathing POV kind of vibes, which is never a good sign in a horror film, right? It's nighttime. We've clearly cut a little bit of time from what we've been seeing earlier. And we see the POV camera is watching Mabel, who is like the lead lady who's organizing the dance. She's a bit older. Like, there was some insinuation that maybe she was the mayor's wife, but like, I'm actually not sure. I think that she's just a random older lady in the town, maybe runs the dry cleaner that the dance is being held at. I honestly have no clue. But she's like the chaperone of the girls who are organizing the dance. So the POV person is watching her as she's starting to set up for the dance. And she's kind of like, oh, I wonder what's going on here, because she starts to hear things and then all of a sudden finds a candy heart box in the dry cleaner where she's setting everything up. Inside the candy box, there's a little note that says, roses are red, violets are blue, love is dead, and so are you. And she's like, huh? Turns around, Harry Warden, pickaxe. I actually can't remember specifically where she gets pickaxed, but I'm pretty sure it's like through the torso to some degree, but it's pretty gnarly. I do really enjoy the Miner's comedic timing for this though. He's like, let's leave her to really read this out loud, and right when she hits the punchline, I can make, like, that's really gonna make this kill special. I appreciate a guy who takes pride in his work, you know what I mean? I also started to get very excited because this for me insinuated that maybe we would get a little funny love, like, rhymey note for every kill, which is the type of shit that I love to see in my campy slasher films. There's a pretty nothing scene that happens after this that's like in a junkyard where they're all fixing cars. Basically small, what Hollywood likes to show us is small town shit. It's like the group of guys chilling, hanging out, blah, blah, blah. The POV camera shot starts again, but it's just a fake out of TJ approaching Axel. Axel is like ripping into a harmonica and is just like really laying out those notes. And then for some reason, TJ also has a harmonica and they start playing a harmonica duet, which is honestly the most important thing I found happened in this scene. But they do also, all of this is basically just to build the tension that there is between Axel and TJ. Axel's like, you better stay away from her. And TJ's like, we all know who she really wants to be with. It's so fucking stupid. It's so stupid. But this is what this scene is for. All right, here is where I air out my frustrations about the asylum. We cut back to the sheriff. He's calling the asylum again to be like, yo, I know you said you don't have the records, but that doesn't make any fucking sense, which I agree with. If you're a criminal, insane asylum, right? If you are literally a place that houses dangerous individuals who need to be monitored to some degree. The woman that answers this, the receptionist, is the sassiest bitch alive. She is giving this sheriff so much fucking tude that I don't understand how he wasn't, like, to be fair, he gets fucking pissed off at her. But she's like, this man, I cannot believe that he is speaking to me like this. It's like, bitch, you've lost any record of a very dangerous individual in your hospital. And it's not even like later on in the film that they're having the records lost somehow ties into the plot. It doesn't. They have just genuinely lost any record of Harry Warden staying there. It's not like as though at the end, Harry Warden had destroyed his own documents so that nobody would know that he ever was there. No, they just fucking lost them. That's where we're at. It's ridiculous to me. It's insane. It is insane. So obviously as a reaction to this, like they can't find the records, whatever. But as a reaction to this, the mayor and the sheriff are like, I feel like we've kind of got to shut down the dance. We can't tell anybody why, because then everyone's going to start freaking out. But we've kind of got to shut down the dance. We then have a very brief scene of Sarah walking down the street with her bestie, Patty. Patty I really like until the end of the film, and she kind of gets, but like, Patty I really like. She's cool. She's a goofy little fucker. But the cool thing, I guess, that we do see is that Sarah, she's a final girl, right? She is our final girl. But she also is obviously in this pretty shitty situation. And you can see that she's just frustrated with both of these fucking guys. And obviously is feeling conflicted about TJ being back in town and the fact that she loved him. Like, she didn't choose to end that relationship. But like, there's a little bit more substance to Sarah than what I was expecting going into this film, which is all that this 2-second scene kind of is showing us, right? Then we cut back to the sheriff is going over to the laundromat to tell Mabel that they're going to have to shut down the dance. And he, surprise, surprise, does a little bit of detective work, looks around the room. There's some upside down hearts. And he's like, now hold on a second. I know Mabel. And if there's anything that I know about Mabel, she'd never put hearts upside down in here. So he's like, something's off. And then he opens one of the giant dryers and her body falls out. And apparently, if you put a body in a dryer, it turns into a like boiled, burnt, fucking gross little thing, which is crazy to me because I didn't think that dryer's got that hot. Otherwise, all our clothes would be singed, but I'm probably wrong. So the mayor and the sheriff are like dealing with Mabel's body, and ultimately they come to the decision that they're obviously going to have to get rid of the dance, like stop the dance, but they can't tell the nearby town of Granville. They can't bring them in for backup or let them know, because if this gets out, then the value of the town, like the economic stability of the town, is going to be decimated, supposedly. And so they're like, we need to keep all of this a secret. Seems like the right thing to do, right? We've already had 2 deaths at this point, is what we're assuming. We've had Mabel and we've had whoever the hell that girl was with the heart-shaped tattoo. We actually never find out, if I'm being honest. But let's assume that she was in nowadays and not 20 years ago. She's also dead. So that's 2 people. 2 people dead at this point. There also is a fun note on this, I forgot. It happened once, it happened twice, cancel the dance or it'll happen thrice. Strikes again. Fucking beautiful material. So obviously in response to this, they cancel the dance. The kids are very upset about it. They're losing their nannies. But they ultimately make a sneaky plan to just run their own dance at the mine. Which when I heard that, I was like, at the mine? What a fucking terrible idea. At the mine's mess hole. Like the big lunch area up the top, not actually down in the mines. Although we all know what's going to fucking happen. They're going to end up down in the mines. But like at that point, I was like, oh, when I saw the dance, I was like, okay, good. It's still just a dance. It's not them just like partying down in the very dangerous mine shafts. We have a very, very funny scene here. And I find it really funny because it's such a deep tonal shift. So we have our first like TJ and Sarah scene. Like TJ kind of, we cut very dramatically after the mayor and the sheriff are like processing everything that's happened. We cut very dramatically to TJ like basically kidnapping Sarah, although she seems to not really mind. Like she's like, oh my God, TJ, no. And she just follows him into the car. And they go to their spot, which is in like a cliff where there's a lot of wind blowing, and all of a sudden this hyper melodramatic music is playing and TJ is apologizing and she's like, why didn't you write me? And it's become Gone with the Wind. And all of a sudden we're in a different movie. We are in a romance film, but the tonal shift is insane. It is insane. But also they have a little smoochy smooch, which is no good because Sarah is still with Axel. But they're showing us like, they're setting up the fact that up until this point, like, I don't really like TJ that much, but Axel's no fucking gem either. In this, they're showing us that the person that she loves is TJ, but she's obviously stressed about, you know, committing to him again, because what's going to stop him from running off again? And she's in a relationship with Axel, who she obviously cares about to some degree. So all of it is messed up. She freaks out, she runs off, you know? So after all of this happens, Sarah's walking home by herself in the dark, because I guess she doesn't know that there's a serial killer out there. We see another POV camera. It is another fake out. It's just the sheriff who's trying to like go and check on the mines and investigating basically the murders. And he's like, you should go on home now, girl. And she's like, okay, sir, I promise I will, right? Like, that's basically what that is. And back at the bar, which is where all the rest of the kids are, obviously Sarah's not there because she's having some emotional feelings about everything that's happened. At the bar, TJ has come up with the grand plan of putting on the other Valentine's Day party. And the bartender is like, yo, I'm trying to tell y'all kids, you're gonna die. Like, this is not a good idea. And they all like constantly just shit in his face. And he's like, fine, don't say I didn't warn you. And TJ's all like, if you tell anyone, I'll fucking punch you in the face, because TJ fucking sucks. Let me reiterate. And he's like, okay, fine, I won't say anything. Which is, if the bartender was really fucking worried, he would have gone and told the sheriff. But anyway, the bartender's a bit of an idiot too. Later on in the night, after the bar is closed, the bartender, to teach the kids a lesson for, you know, belittling him and not believing him, sets up a fake miner killer to kind of rig behind a door. So when people open up the door, it seems like as though a killer in a miner outfit is attacking them with a pickaxe, but it's not real, right? So he like thinks this is the funniest thing that has ever happened in the world. So he keeps opening it, closing it, opening it, laughing, closing it, opening it, laughing, closing it. What are we doing here, guys? We're building suspense. We all know what's about to happen. Opens it for the 4th time, and it's the actual killer, and he gets stabbed through the mouth hole. No bueno. And clearly the killer dismantles the joke, because we never see this again. But it's so fucking stupid because it's not that funny. And he just keeps on... Anyway, I feel bad for him because he truly was trying to save these kids' lives, but also he was kind of a dick as well. So whatever. Everyone's a dickhead in this movie. So the party kicks off, and almost instantly we lose our first nameless individual that I have not noticed before now. His name is Dave. He's one of the kids. That's all we really need to know. So he goes into the kitchen because he's hungry, and there's a pot that's boiling hot dogs, and the killer appears behind him and pushes his head into the hot dog pot. That's all that we see that happens. But obviously he's dying, right? That's where we're at. So the sheriff, being nervy, is going to check out the mines, but when he's leaving, he finds like a bunch of stray dogs attacking a heart-shaped candy box, which is covered in blood. When he opens the candy box, it says, "You didn't stop the party." And so the sheriff's like, what fucking party? I stopped the dance. He doesn't know that the kids have organized their own dance. And I still think like this is something that's going to happen. Why would they think that Harry Warden would give a fuck that they're doing another dance? Does that mean if somebody's birthday is on Valentine's Day, they can't do a birthday party? Because like ultimately, anyway, I could go on for how stupid that is forever. But yet again, this is why it is satire to me. So back at the dance, Axel and TJ start getting into a testosterone off. Sarah gets pissed off. They start fighting, and they end up kicking out Axel because he was acting more dickish out of everyone, basically. Like, TJ defends her. He's more attacking her. Like, ultimately, they're obviously angling us to give more of a fuck about TJ than we do about Axel. But then Axel's outside and he's crying, and you're kind of like, that's kind of sad too. Like, he's been set up bad. But both of these men are not good. And she's kind of done with both of them at this point. Like, she's like, fuck off, both of you. You're both idiots. I'm not interested. Leave me alone, right? This is where she's at, which is where I would be at too. So another couple that I have truly not clocked up until this point, they have left the Valentine's Day dance to go get freaky in a different area where they like keep all of the mining suits hung up on the roof. And to get the mining suits, you pull on a rope and then it falls down in front of you and you can take it off, right? So this is obviously something that's going to come into play a little bit later. So this couple's getting freaky. First rule of horror movies, don't have sex. Don't leave the group and don't have sex. So we all know what's going to happen here. The girl is like, oh my God, get me a beer. And so he leaves to go back to the party to get a beer for her and leaves her alone. Probably not good. So the guy goes to the kitchen. In the kitchen, the girls are trying to get some hot dogs out of the hot dog pot. Last time we saw this hot dog pot, Dave's head was being shoved into it. All of a sudden, they scream and freak out because there's a heart that has bubbled up to the surface. This distracts the guy who was getting a beer from the fridge, so he looks away instead of looking in the fridge. In the fridge is Dave's dead body, but he doesn't see it. He just grabs the beer and is like, someone was probably playing a prank. Closes the fridge and then walks up to the girls, goes off back into the warehouse, right? So his body is there. Anyone could have seen it. These girls believe that it's a prank, this heart that is in the hot dog water. Like, it's disgusting. If anybody played that kind of a prank on me, I would not be at that party anymore. These are not your friends. So we cut back to the girl. Her name's Sylvia. She starts getting spooked because she hears noises, and then all of the showers get turned on in the shower room that I guess is near the uniform room, which I guess makes sense. And she starts freaking out and thinking that it's the other guy, but it's not. And just as she's, getting overstimulated by the shower and getting freaked out by noises, all of a sudden a bunch of the uniforms start jumping down around her constantly. So like, it's clearly somebody is pulling all of these ropes, and she's like, oh my god, freaking out, like whatever. And like, sure, it could be a prank, but it's obviously not. It's the fucking miner, and he stabs her and she dies. So back with the main party, yet again, nobody has flinched an eyelid at the heart that has showed up in this hot dog pot. Nobody's worried about it. Nobody's bothered, right? But it is what it is. So the group decides to go down to the mines, I think the girls are like, oh, come on, show us what it's like down there, whatever. And Hollis, who's Patty's boyfriend, I really like him, he's cool, they're a cool couple. Hollis decides that he'll take a little group down. So they go down in the mine carts. We've got Sarah, Patty, Hollis, there's another guy who I can't remember the name of, but I'm sure it's in my notes and I'll find it later. And then a random couple. So they decide to go down. TJ's pissed off because apparently there's a rule that no women can be in the mines, which honestly, TJ, is the absolute last thing that you need to be worrying about right now. So many other things going on. How about you go check out that heart that showed up in the hot dog water? How about we check out that? Let's see what's going on there. I'm not saying it's a good thing for them to go down in the mines. I'm just saying you're focusing on the wrong problems. So they decide to go down. They were only supposed to go down in the minecarts and then go straight back up, but the group convinces Hollis to give them a tour of the area since they were already down there. So Hollis kind of points out one section, which is an abandoned part of the mine, and then they start going down the usual way for him to show them the areas that they work in. The random couple is like, wow, this is the sexiest place we have ever seen. And much like the girl in the beginning of the film, they're like, we need to go bang immediately because this is so much more comfortable than just banging upstairs. So they split from the group and they're like, we'll meet you back at the minecarts in 10 minutes. So they go off to do their thing. It doesn't bode well for them, does it? So back up the top, everyone's starting to fucking get the fucking picture. Old mate, I think his name was John, finds the girl's body in the uniform shower room. He's like the miner killer. Harry Warden has like put her up in the showers, and he found her and is like in shock. So he goes back to the group in shock and everyone's like, what's wrong? And then there's a scream from the kitchen because one of the girls has found Dave's body. So now we're all starting to kind of, we're pulling it together, right? And so TJ is like, holy shit, Axel, we need to go get the girls. And Hollis, they're still down in the mine. Everybody else get the fuck out of here. You two, Joe and another guy who I have no idea who the fuck he is, go and tell the sheriff and make sure that you bring everybody back here. Harry Warden is here, right? So this is where we're at. TJ and Axel are going down in the mine to find the others. Everybody else is skirt to go and tell the sheriff and blah, blah, blah. So this is the point where you start to see that they're kind of insinuating in the film that either TJ or Axel is the killer. And I say that because they split up when they get down in the mine to look for the group. And you start to kind of see the insinuation of like, when does the miner appear and who is around when he does? So we know that it can't be that person. And that's kind of the same with the couple as well, I guess. And also the other random that is with them down there, who I can't remember the name of, that you're starting to see that, hey, it's probably not Harry Warden. It's probably one of the cast that we know. There's probably going to be a twist. But I'm sure back in the 80s, this was very exciting stuff when it came out, right? His name is Howard, and he's a dick. He's an idiot. He's like the jokester of the group. So he always goofs off and makes everyone laugh. But he's fine. He's harmless, right? So Hollis takes the girls into the abandoned part of the mine because that's the end of their tour and they just want to see it. And he's like, this is the area. We don't really come in here. There's nothing interesting. We just don't come here because it's old. And Howard decides to jump scare them, hanging down from the ceiling like a bat. Hollis has to like cradle him out of it. So we've got the four of them together. We've got Axel and TJ roaming the mines looking for everybody. And then we've got the couple who are smooching in a back room that we haven't heard from in a while. So yet again, that group of four still doesn't know that there's any problems, but they do hear like smashing because the miner, Harry Warden, like the miner in the gas mask, is smashing the lights down in the mine. So they are hearing that and they're like, something feels a bit weird. That's a really random thing to be happening. And if it's not the couple, then who the fuck is doing that? we should get the fuck out of here. So they run back to the minecart. When they're running back to the minecart, they run into TJ. TJ tells them, hey, Harry Warden is fucking upstairs and probably down here now. We need to get the fuck out of here. And they're like, what do you mean? Oh my God. And it's like, yeah, is bad. The two guys who were sent off to get the sheriff and the mayor, they get the sheriff and the mayor. And so those two rally up all of the men in the town to go to the mines and take down Harry Warden. So now that TJ is back with the group, Hollis tells him, hey, that couple, they're in a room. We need to go find them. And like they haven't come back and it's been past 10 minutes. So Hollis and TJ split off from the group, go in two separate directions to go and look for the couple. Howard stays with the girls and they're supposed to just wait there, right? So Hollis finds the couple in this room. They've been impaled through the back by like one of those big mining hooks. And he's like, holy shit, Harry Warden's down here. He turns around, Harry Warden is down here and he's got a nail gun. And Hollis gets nail gunned to death, which is really sad because I really liked Hollis. Hollis does manage to make it back to the girls and Howard, but he dies when he gets to them, and Howard, being the little bitch that he is, legs it off. He runs. He literally dips. And we can see Harry Warden, or like the miner, approaching the girls and approaching the group. And Sarah is trying to get Patty to leave Hollis's body, but she won't. Like, this is where Patty starts getting annoying. She loses her shit and becomes that very like classic damsel in distress, won't just pull it together to survive. Like, staying with Hollis's body is more important to her than the fact that a serial killer is fast approaching. It's ridiculous, but it is what it is. It's the way that she was portrayed. This is where she starts getting annoying. She's very scared. So Sarah is like her rock right now. She's like keeping it together for her. So Axel appears out of nowhere, manages to get the girls and is like, follow me, I know a shortcut to the exit. Suspicious. And takes them deeper into the mines where they run into TJ. The sheriff arrives at the mines with all the guys, but when he tries to use the lift that Axel and TJ used to go down, it's broken. Somebody has fucked with the command controls, which means that they can't go down, and it also means that the others can't use it to come back up. So TJ and Axel were the last people to use the lift, weren't they? Interesting. We're starting to narrow it down to two people that it could be, or Harry Warden, I guess. So somebody's playing like really loud Chinese music downstairs, which honestly I'm not mad about. Good to have some background music for once, am I right? So when they realize that the lift is no longer working, they decide to use the ladder that is next to the lift to climb up. At this point, we find out that the girls have been wearing heels this entire time, which is batshit bonkers to me. That is bloody insane. I cannot believe that that is the case. They literally have been wearing heels. Insanity. Anyway, they've been wearing heels the whole time. And so they're climbing up the ladder. Patty is still losing her shit because the ladder is really slippery too. So she doesn't want to go too quickly. Axel is zooming up this fucking ladder. Patty slips a little bit. Sarah's down below her. Sarah comes up so that they can kind of climb together and go a little bit slower. Sarah's saying like, Axel, slow the fuck down. It's slippery. We can't go that quickly. Axel, when he's climbing, grabs onto a rung, and then all of a sudden Howard's body comes out of nowhere and is thrown down to the bottom of the mine shaft, insinuating that the miner / Harry Warden is up above them, right? That's basically what is being insinuated, that the body was thrown at them. Axel reaches up, body falls down. Interesting, isn't it? Just saying. Anyway, so they're like, fuck, Harry Warden's up there. We've got to go back down. So they turn around, they go back down. Ladder, not a route that they can use. So they're like, fuck, the only way that we can get back now is the mine carts. That's the only option that we have. So they start heading back in that direction. So Axel is like, don't worry, I've got a shortcut to the mine cart. Yet again, him and his shortcuts. Suspicious. And this shortcut is completely flooded and full of water. And so they're kind of like trying to go through. Axel stays behind to make sure that everything's clear behind them. They turn the corner and TJ's like, it's all clear, you come through. But instead they hear sounds, and when they go back, it appears that Axel has fallen into the water and drowned. They don't even check, but they see bubbles. So no more Axel. They're like, oh, he's dead. Okay, we've got to keep moving. So they keep on going. It's very suspicious. This is what I'm saying. They keep on going. For some reason, they need to split up at this point. I don't know if I checked out or if the film just didn't explain it, but the girls basically are going down the main minecart tunnel. And then TJ is like, I need to go this way quickly. The direction he goes in, there's a really big landslide. So the girls are like, fuck, okay, we need to keep on going without him. They hear the sound, they can't hear him. They decide to keep on going. As they're walking down the minecart tunnel, Patty is walking in front of Sarah, and the miner comes out from around a corner and stabs Patty in the stomach, unfortunately. So Sarah starts running back in the other direction. She goes closer towards the way that TJ first went, and surprise, surprise, TJ is alive. That's kind of suspicious. kind of suspicious too. Now I'm feeling less confident about my Axel theory. So they finally make it to the minecart, TJ and Sarah, our final two people that are left, right? They make it to the minecart and then we see that the miner attacks them. So it can't be TJ, aka it must be Axel, is where I'm at. And so the minecart is traveling towards the exit. We can see that the police, sheriff, the mayor, and all of the men are now running down the mine shaft in the other direction. So we're kind of going towards each other. So Sarah and TJ are on the minecart as it's traveling. The miner jumps on as well. TJ and the miner start fighting, and amidst the scuffle, they are pulled off of the minecart. Sarah jumps off to help TJ in the fight, and they flee into a abandoned mine shaft that has like a do not enter section, kind of like danger, not maintained kind of area. And the miner is attacking everything basically and trying to attack TJ. And he's like taking out with the pickaxe, he's taking out beams, he's taking out things that are supporting the roof, he's taking out piles of rock. So there's basically no support in the cavern. He's just losing his shit. And just as he's about to kill TJ, Sarah manages to grab him from behind. She takes off his mask and surprise, surprise, it is Axel. It is Axel who is the killer. I got it right, guys. I got it right. What can I say? So from this, we find out that Axel was the son of one of the supervisors, and he was under the bed when Harry Warden killed his dad for leaving the five of them down there and going to the Valentine's Day dance. Apparently, watching this at such a young age triggered him to become or worship or like want to continue the vengeance of Harry Warden throughout his life. And so he now is acting in Harry Warden's, behest, to his behest, I guess. He's continuing his legacy. There's a cave in and Axel is presumed underneath the rubble. All of the men, Sarah and TJ are running out. All of the men are running into this little room. They start digging it out to try and get Axel out of there. His arm is moving. And then they say he's alive. So Sarah and TJ run back into the mine shaft. And when they look, it turns out through the holes, you can see Axel has cut off his arm and is like saying all of this crazy maniacal stuff, obviously setting up for a sequel. And he just runs deep into the mine, singing and rambling about Harry Warden and Valentine's Day and they'll be back and all of this kind of stuff that's obviously setting up for a sequel, right? And that's the film. It's pretty simple. There's like not a huge amount going on. And obviously the love triangle becomes a lot less like dire when one of them ends up being a serial killer. So you can kind of tell which one she's going to end up with. But honestly, a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Pretty funny. And I think a satirical version of a holiday horror film that was probably not remade great. So they should remake it again. And maybe they should still put Dean Winchester in it because I like him. But it should be better than it was and funnier. It should be funny. It's not meant to be like, it's not meant to be like, the House of Wax remake or like any of those Y2K kind of grunge horror films. That's not the vibe of My Bloody Valentine, which is very much the vibe of the remake. It's supposed to be kitschy, campy, horror slasher, comedy. Like that's where it's coming from. That's what it is. So I think that there is a lot of space to do more with this. And I really liked the film. I really like Canadian films in general. I feel like they've got a level of like wholesomeness that American films don't have. I don't know how to explain that more than I have. So actually, one thing that I have forgotten to mention, there was a bit of a controversy around this film, and apparently the powers that be decided, the Motion Pictures Association of America decided to heavily censor this film. And so 9 minutes of the original film was cut, apparently, allegedly, right? And so in, I think it was like 2010 or like recently, the rights to the film were transferred over and they finally released the uncut version after having rediscovered 3 minutes of footage, which I think was Lionsgate that released it, right? And so everybody's kind of like, well, it wasn't 9 minutes that was missing, but essentially like it sounds like the PR and the actual final cut of the film was torn to shreds by censorship, and it wasn't what they wanted it to eventually be, but it is what we ended up getting. And obviously people like this version of the film. It's a cult classic, but maybe it stopped it from being as big of a box office hit as it could have been. But I feel like it's kind of similar to a Battle Royale, which I was talking about in my Squid Games video, in that people, even if it's not that bad, people will latch onto it if there's press about something being really, really terrible. Like people always say that Sinister is one of the scariest films that's ever been made. To me, Sinister is not that fucking scary. It is not that scary. Like, yeah, it's scary, but it doesn't outweigh anything else that I've seen. Like, it's spooky. It's a horror film. Of course, it's meant to be spooky, but I think I saw something that it was like they did a study of the films that raised everyone's heart rate the most. I was like, I can watch Sinister and like go to sleep quite comfortably directly afterwards. I think we're okay. Anyway, I feel like I've rambled enough, I think. Also, Blumhouse yet again is fucking remaking it as we speak, apparently. So I feel like that's always what ends up happening. That's always what ends up being at the end of my film. At the end of my videos is talking about Blumhouse remaking a fucking film. But Blumhouse is apparently making a remake of My Bloody Valentine. We'll see when it comes out. I reckon they're probably just buying up as much IP as they can so that then when they eventually decide to get to it, they can get to it, you know. Anyway, so that's my Valentine's Day special. That's My Bloody Valentine. I feel like I've got nothing else to say. And I'll see you next week. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff if you like this video. And check out my previous videos as well, because if you like this one, you'll probably like them too. Thanks for watching. Bye.